Hello all and welcome to video classes by Condor Institutes. Today we will be discussing the next part, which is law of demand. We have already discussed what is law of demand in our previous classes. So for your better understanding, again I will be explaining this and you will be getting more insights on this. Basically you all know, right, what is law of demand. So here when we are talking about law of demand, there is a relationship between the price and the quantity of the goods which is being demanded by the consumer, right? So keeping in mind that the consumer's income, his likes and preferences and the price of the other good is constant. So now we are just talking about the quantity of a single commodity and its price. So when the prices of a single commodity, when we consider any of the commodity, for example mangoes, if we take, if the price of the mangoes increases gradually, then the quantity of the purchase of that mangoes from or by the consumer decreases. It's like a negative relation. Why? Because as the prices go high, the quantity of the purchase of that commodity becomes less. If the prices are falling down, if the prices are coming down, then the quantity of purchase of that commodity will be increased. So that's the law of demand. So here A by B is the point wherein this is the price at which the quantity demanded by the consumer will be zero. Because this is the highest price quoted for that commodity, and when the prices are at its highest rates, then consumer doesn't tend to buy the commodity. So that's the reason the quantity demanded for the price at this A by B will be always zero. But at the point A, okay, you can see here, this is the quantity. So when the consumer reaches to the quantity of A, then the prices of that commodity will be zero. So this shows that the buyer has to make adjustments here. If the prices falls, then his quantity will increase. Otherwise, if the prices are increasing, then the quantity of purchase will be decreased. So this is the formula wherein we can be deriving, or we can draw the demand curve with the help of this formula, which is QD is equal to A minus B of P. What is this QD? QD is the quantity demanded by the consumer, and A is the factors which is influencing the price, and B is the slope of the demand curve. So minus B tells us the slope of the demand curve, and P stands for the price of that good, price of the commodity in which we are talking, or the price of the commodity the consumer is willing to buy. So with the help of this equation, the demand curve is derived. So for example, how this demand curve question comes? QD is equal to 20 minus 2P. So this is how the question appears. So you have to change this P form, and then you will get the equation, you will get the points, and then with the help of those points you have to mark it down on the graph, and then there will be a demand curve which will be appearing on the graph. So that's all about the law of demand. And next we have something called as the normal goods and the inferior goods, and also we have as complements and the substitutes. So what are these normal goods? When we are living our life daily with all those daily transactions, right, we need normal goods to fulfill our wants and to lead our life, right? So keeping in mind that here in all the previous classes we were discussing that keeping in mind the consumer income constant, the preferences and the likes of the consumer is also constant, and also we were kept constant the other commodity which was a bundle of a part of that bundle, right? So we were talking about just the relationship between the price and the commodity or the quantity. But here in the normal goods or in the inferior goods, here we are talking about the relationship between the consumer's income and the quantity of a consumer which he is willing to buy. So when we are comparing, when we are making relationship, or when we are studying the relationship between the income of a consumer and the quantity of the goods willing to buy by a consumer, so these are the two important things when we are studying in the normal goods or the inferior goods. So what happens when the consumer's income increases? So when the consumer income increases, he tends to buy more of goods, right? If his income is rupees 40, then he will always tend to fit his budget in this 40 rupees, right? But when the income is increased to 50 rupees, then is he going to just sit or fit his budget in 40 rupees itself? No, right? He increases that for that 10 rupees, extra 10 rupees. So this normal goods income also increases of the consumer. As the income of the consumer increases, then the quantity of the goods or the quantity of the commodities will also increase. So this goes in a positive manner, this goes in the same manner. If the income of the consumer decreases, then the quantity of the commodity demanded by the consumer will also be decreased. That's the reason we call it as a positive, or it goes in the same direction. But this is not the same case with the inferior goods. So inferior goods act in a negative way. How these inferior goods act in a negative way? Inferior word itself is telling that when a consumer's income is less, then what happens? Is he going to buy the goods in a very bulk manner or a huge manner? No, right? So what he tends, when the income decreases, so his standard of living will be congested or restricted to very less amount. So that's the reason he goes and buy those products which are available at very less cost. And when his income increases, then he tends to go and purchase the commodities in the huge manner because his income has expanded. That's the reason he is not going to buy those goods which are of a low cost. But what he does, when the income increases, he tries to purchase the goods which are of a standard quality. Okay, so that's the definition of the inferior goods. Coming to the substitutes and the complements. Complements, you all know, right? Complements itself tells that when you are getting one product with the same main product, you get the another product, right? So that's the complement. We all have seen in the advertisements giving compliments for the main products, right? So here also the same thing happens. See, if we take example of tea and sugar, they have to go with each other because when we are preparing tea, we need sugar also, right? In the same way, shoes and socks. Okay? So when we buy shoes, we even need socks, right? So these go hand in hand. So here, tea is the complement of sugar and sugar is the complement of tea. So when the prices of sugar is increasing, then the preference of buying of a tea powder by the consumer decreases. Why? Because the price of the sugar has increased. Then how many of the consumer will be able to prepare tea and they will prefer to have that tea? It's very less, right? Because of the prices of the sugar which has increased. That's the reason complementary goods have negative impact here. If the prices of the goods or the one complement product increases, then the other complement product will decrease. See here also, if the price of a shoe increases, then how many consumers will tend to buy the socks? It will be less, right? So if you prefer to buy shoes, then you prefer to buy the socks. So this is the content or the theme of the complements. And next, coming to the substitutions. What are these substitution goods? See, tea and sugar is one example. We'll continue with this. Okay. See, when the price of the sugar increases, then the consumer prefers to buy tea in less number, right? So here what happens is, instead of preferring this tea, he can prefer something else. He can prefer jaggery, right? Why he is preferring jaggery is because the price of the sugar is increased, right? Otherwise, if the price of the tea is increased and these both are at the same level, then the consumer is going to prefer to have tea? No. But what he will do is he will substitute having tea with coffee. Why? Because the price of the coffee is still the same or may not be that high as compared to tea. That's the reason here the consumer is substituting having tea with the coffee. That's all about the substitutes and the coffee. Complements. And in the coming class we can study more on the movements along the demand curve and the shift in the demand curve. See you all in the next video class.